Hi guys, welcome to another Exploration Saturday. My name is Sarah, and today we're going to talk about the Corps of Discovery's favorites, some of their favorite things on the expedition in honor of Valentine's Day that's coming up. And so with Lewis and Clark, as we remember 200 years ago, they set sail from St. Louis, they ascended the Missouri River, and they made their way to the Pacific Ocean. And this trip took a total of 2 years and 4 months, and all along the way, there and back, they met a lot of important people, they saw a lot of cool things, and they also learned a lot of new things too that they brought back and shared with their families and friends back home. Now, Valentine's Day is all about love and family and friends and just being together and telling your loved ones that you care about them, maybe with a card or a flower. Lewis and Clark's, in their time, Valentine's wasn't too big of a holiday yet, but you might have made a homemade card for someone, or you might still have shared flowers with them, just something really caring. And so today, after we talk a little bit about some of the core favorites, I'm going to teach you how to make some tissue flowers, which I have one right here. And I also invite you guys to stop by next week, that would be February the 9th to the 14th, to pick up a little Valentine kit bag where you'll learn how to make your own tissue flowers. There's going to be some goodies in there. We'll have some Lewis and Clark themed puns too that you can write in your Valentine Day cards. So you're welcome to pick up one of those next week. And then we'll wrap up with some inspired sugar cookies inspired by Captain Clark and his birthday meal. We know the captains had a few birthdays on the expedition that they celebrated, and with Captain Clark one summer, he had a dessert of cherries, berries, plums, and grapes, a bunch of fruit. So we're going to add some dry fruit to our Valentine sugar cookies, and we're going to cut little hearts out of them. So if you think about yourself, some of your favorite things in the whole world, there's probably a few people that might be your favorite, maybe mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, don't tell them. And the same was with Lewis and Clark. Their whole team was really important to them. This was a group of men that they had to trust with their lives to get them to complete their mission and home safely. So of course the captains really cared about each other, they cared about their soldiers, and they had a lot of people helping them. Some of their sergeants, Charles Floyd, Patrick Gass, John Ordway, York, Drew Juilliard, there was George Silas. So a lot of these guys, they all became together as a family. They all really cared for each other. We know from the journals that they treated each other's injuries, looked out for each other, and really they became a really important family during the whole expedition. And another person that was really important to them too, that they didn't meet until about halfway through the expedition, was Sacagawea and her family. And Sacagawea would become very important to the captains. She was a really important interpreter when they met the Shoshone tribe in the Rocky Mountains. She acted as an interpreter, so she spoke a different language and could translate for the captains. And they would be able to talk back and forth for important resources that they needed, like horses and food. And she knew a lot about the region. She had grown up in the Rocky Mountain region, so she shared that knowledge with the captains. And they really came to care about her and her little baby, John Baptiste, also known as Pomp. Captain Clark really took a liking to baby Pomp, and I'm sure baby Pomp was a really good moral, really lifted the men's spirits on the expedition to have this itty little baby with them. And so the whole crew, Sacagawea, they were all very important and some of the favorites on the expedition. Another thing that were favorites on the expedition was food. So you got to think about what's your favorite food that you love to eat. And we know probably Captain Lewis's favorite recipe was boudin blanc. And that's basically bison sausages. He devotes like a whole page in his journal to writing about the recipe for boudin blanc, how you made these bison sausages, and you fried it in bear's oil. He absolutely loved it. He had a whole page dedicated to that recipe. We also know they had some really fun places that they saw while they were on the expedition. We know from the journals the Great Falls of Montana, they were blown away by it. The Great Falls, if you've ever been out to about central Montana, they're a series of 5 waterfalls and they were just amazing. Lewis even writes that he kind of hoped he had what would have been a camera back in the day to capture it. He wished he really had like a camera to capture the Great Falls because it's hard to describe in words. It was just so amazing to him. We also know the plants and the animals were really cool to them. Their whole natural environment that they were seeing while they were traveling up the river was really took a lot of pages in their journals. While they're here in the Siouxland area, Captain Clark wrote about the beautiful prairies that he saw with the flowers and the wildlife, the cottonwood trees growing with the river streaming right next to it. He said it was like one of the most beautiful things he had ever seen. So just their environment that they were seeing, the people, the food, the places. And I'm guessing in February when they were camped in North Dakota, this time of year, one of their other favorite things was their suitcases, all the cargo they brought with them, because their cargo had all those wool hats, their long socks, their wool blankets, and probably this time of the year in February, these were some of their favorite things in the winter to keep them warm because they were in North Dakota in 1805 and it was a little cold. And of course, one more thing I want to point out, I'm holding a jaw harp. So it wasn't all work on the expedition. They did have some time for fun. We know from the journals, oftentimes they would play games with the native people they met. They would share music, songs, probably stories. So jaw harp is one of those music instruments they probably had on the expedition. It was probably some of their favorite things too because they could play music, really come together as a group. They probably had cards and dice, so some of their favorite things on the expedition. Now, one of my favorite things is flowers for Valentine's Day. And of course, Lewis and Clark saw many different types of flowers here in the Siouxland area. It's considered a weed now, but it's only a weed because we call it a weed. It's the curly cup gumweed, and it's a really pretty flower in my opinion, kind of looks like a dandelion. So, in honor of Valentine's Day and all the flowers Lewis and Clark saw on the trail, I'm going to teach you how to make a tissue flower. And it's not too long since we had Christmas, so you have some leftover tissue paper. Go ahead, pull that out of the closet, and you get these really big squares, and we're just going to cut about 5 squares to use for our tissue flower. So with the big square, I'm going to fold it into 4s. So I'm going to fold it the long way. There we go. And then I'm going to fold it one more time. So it's folded into a square. I'm going to grab some scissors and I'm going to cut where I had folded it. So I'm going to cut along one side where it's folded. There we go. I'm going to fold it one more time. I'm going to cut it one more time where that other fold was. And by doing so, you make little squares that are perfect size for a flower. So you can cut the other tissue paper too. I've actually pre-cut some pinks, some tissue paper with hearts. So I'm going to use those. And if you come and pick up a Valentine kit, it's going to have about, I think we do a 5-layer flower that you can make, and there's tissue paper already included. And then what you can do, there's different colors. You can use whatever colors you want. I'm going to mix them up. I'm going to do a pink, a red, do some hearts maybe there in the middle, and another pink one on top. And then this, you're going to fold accordion style. So you fold it back and forth, just like an accordion, that musical instrument that you might see maybe when you're out and about. And they're just going to be small folds, so about 1 inch wide. And then I'm going to turn it over, fold again, fold it back over, flip and fold, flip and fold. You'll do that a few times until you have a thin strip of all that tissue paper folded together. And then you grab a stapler. You're going to staple right there in the middle of all that tissue paper. Now, of course, if you have a flower, you're going to need some stems for your flower. So I like to just take a green pipe cleaner that you might have lying about. And I'm just gonna fold it right around that staple, fold it around the middle of my tissue paper. Do a little knot there at the end. And so far, so good. Now the next step you have to do is you have to, actually before I do the next step, at the ends of your tissue paper, you can actually cut out some fun designs. You can do zigzags, you can do curves, because if you look at a flower, some of them have pointed petals, some are more rounded petals, and so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do some curvy petals for my flower there. So do some fun shapes. And then the next part we're going to do, we're going to fluff out our petals here now. And you kind of fluff them out around the middle part. There we go. Now I gotta do the other side. There we go. There's a lot of different fun ways you can do your tissue flowers. You can add a little piece of tissue paper in the middle there, and that gives you a little bit more of a fluffy middle portion. So play around with it, investigate new ways to make your tissue flowers, and then you can make a whole bouquet of your tissue flowers and give it to someone you care about too. So there we go. It's looking pretty. Now, of course, you got your flowers for Valentine's Day. And of course, for Valentine's Day, you need something sweet for your sweetheart, right? Or whoever you might care about at home, or your friends or family. And so I'll have this in the worksheet in the comments below, a recipe for sugar cookies. And what we make them special is I have some dried cranberries, inspired by Captain Clark's journal entries about all those yummy fruits he had for his birthday. So I thought we'll throw in some red cranberries for Valentine's Day because they're red. It'll add a little special treat for Captain Clark's special cookies. They didn't eat cookies on the expedition, but I'm sure they would have loved to have cookies on the expedition too. So I have a recipe provided, but if you do have a favorite sugar recipe at home that you use maybe during the holiday season, go ahead and use that sugar cookie recipe, and then you just throw in some cranberries at the end. So I am going to add a stick of butter. I'm doing about half the recipe that's on the worksheet, so you can make a big of a batch as you want to. But basically you're going to take your sugar and your butter and you're going to cream them together. So I have, let's see, I have a half a cup of sugar here. There we go. And you'll want to use room temperature butter so it can just kind of combine with the sugar. So we're going to stir all that up. Then I'm going to add a little vanilla, 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And if you want to make them really yummy too, if you like almond, you can add almond extract to your cookies too, along with your vanilla, kind of give it a little more flavor too, a little almond flavor. And then also I'm going to add 1 egg. There we go. It's okay to get a little messy in the kitchen. So you're going to combine all that together. In a separate bowl, we're going to add all our dry ingredients. Now, you can use all-purpose flour. I happen to have wheat flour in my kitchen, so I went ahead and used wheat flour. So my cookies are going to look a little darker than maybe a normal sugar cookie, but that's okay. It's fun to try new ingredients, so I say go ahead, try some different ingredients, see how it turns out. I have a little salt packets that I'm going to add. I always get these salt packets. There's a good use for them too. Add that here. So we got flour, we got salt, we need some baking powder. There we go. I'm just going to sprinkle a little in. I need a ½ teaspoon for my recipe there. Add that to it. Mix that together in the bowl. Then, if you want to investigate or experiment, I'm going to add a little food coloring back to my sugar bowl here. Not sure how it's going to turn out, but I think it's fun just to kind of experiment in the kitchen. I'm not a perfect baker, but I do love to bake, and I say, you know, if something goes a little wrong, that's okay. It's all part of the learning process. So I'm going to add that to my sugar, eggs, and butter in there. And then what you slowly do, you're going to slowly add your flour to your butter and sugar bowl. And you mix it in little by little. You don't want to overstir too much. And I recommend don't use your mixer, because kind of do it the Frontier way, because on the Frontier there was no electricity, so everything was done by hand and it was kind of hard work. So I say don't use your mixer. Don't use anything that requires electricity except your oven, because we kind of need that to bake our cookies. So I'm going to keep combining this together. I'm going to pop into the kitchen, whip up a batch of sugar cookies. After you get it all combined, you shape it into a ball, and you're going to have to throw it in the fridge for at least 30 minutes, but leave it longer if you can. And then after it's been refrigerated for a little while, we'll cut out some heart shapes, add some cranberries. Actually, before you throw it in the fridge, I am going to add a scoop of cranberries to my batter. Kind of do it at the end when you're just finally combining everything. There we go. We got our cranberries, our red cranberries in there. We're going to get this all combined in the kitchen, and then we'll see what happens and how our cookies turned out after we bake them. Well guys, I hope you had fun today. After you get back from the kitchen, remember to bake your cookies for 8 to 10 minutes in the oven, set at 350 degrees, and then take them out and you're ready to go with your cute little heart-shaped Valentine cookies. I will see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.